the Gaza's Children Village, which is doing remarkable things now to help serve the children of Gaza. Why go work in Gaza at a war?
I grew up in only one narrative, and that narrative is this land belongs to the Palestinians and doesn't belong to the Israelis and Jews, and because of that, we got to hate them and we have to get rid of them. And it was one kind gesture, changed my whole trajectory. We want to do something for you. What can we do? They said, well, if you can buy us flour, there's nothing else left. So there's some flour in the market left. And I think at that time, we don't want to know, but we think we bought it from us, but we didn't care. And we wanted to feed the people. But that money came from, again, from both sides. We bought flour, we sustained 1,500 families for almost 3-4 weeks.
Welcome to the Long Path Podcast. I'm Amitai Freeman. I'm the founder and director of the Z3 Project. This is a podcast where we have conversations with thinkers and leaders and doers who are really charting a path forward in difficult moments, either on the ground or intellectually. And I am incredibly honored to host on this episode, I dare say a friend. We met through work, but Dr. David Hasan, really remarkable, and as you'll hear in the story in a minute. But he's a scientist. He's a neurosurgeon at Duke University. He has a very long list of accomplishments, and his bio will be in the description. But the part of what we're going to talk about is the intersection, of course, of his professional work, but almost more importantly, is his work on the ground for the past almost a year with minutes. So welcome to the Long Path Podcast. David, Dr. Hasan, it's such a pleasure and honor truly to have you on join us for this conversation.
Thank you, Amitabh, for this kind words. I really appreciate it. And I can dare you're a good friend. I can say you're a good friend.
Do what I can. So look, I want to jump right into it. And you know, there's a lot been written on your work, which is great because people could and should read up about it in different outlets. Because it is really remarkable. But I do want to, just to get us started and situated, you know, a little bit of the background, like why go work in Gaza at a war? What's going on? What's in the background there?
Well, Amitai, this is what happened. I was born and raised in the Middle East. I was born in Kuwait. And born to a Palestinian parents who immigrated from West Bank to Kuwait in 1967. And they raised us, and they did an amazing job. But during that time, I grew up in only one narrative. And that narrative unfortunately, this land belongs to the Palestinians and doesn't belong to the Israelis and Jews. And because of that, we got to hate them and we have to get rid of them and move them. So that's the first thing. I grew all my 18 years life in Kuwait till I moved to the United States. And it was one kind gesture that changed my whole trajectory. And also now what I look back and use it as a fuel and energy to do what I'm doing now. I was getting in the plane, flying from Amman, Jordan to Dallas, but I only bought a tickets to go to JFK. So here I'm sitting in the plane and I'm trying to eat, okay, with a knife and fork. I never ate with a knife and fork. I got a pita bread and dip it and eat it. So I'm trying to learn how to eat with a fork and knife. So this guy next to me is late 50s, early 60s. I felt for him, and he just kindly started showing me. So I got good at it. And then I found out he speaks English. And here I am, I'm 18-year-old, learned a few words English. I just want to practice my English. And so we talked all the way, and then we landed in JFK. He said, David, I have a long layover. Where's your ticket? You're flying to Dallas. Show me, I can take you. It's a big airport. I don't want to get you lost. And I said, what do you have a ticket? I don't have a ticket. And he goes, you schmuck. We don't have a ticket. So he said, okay, he took me from my ears. He got so comfortable with me
Yeah.
and took me to American Airlines. And he said, buy the guy a ticket, show him the passport, look at the passport. Do you have a credit card? Nope. Well, do you have a cash? Yes. And I said, can I get a scissors? And everybody jumped back. It's like, here's the Arabic guy with the scissors. This is gonna. Needless to know, my mom put the money in my pocket and sutured it. I just wanted to cut that just to give him. So he did that. And because of that, he was kind, took me, but we stayed together. But he never, ever, for years, to tell me he's a Jewish guy.
Mm.
When he's dying, I went and visited him, and I saw a lot of the Jewish community there, with kippah and everything. And I walked in, and it's like, and he told me, and he's dying of cancer, and I said, why? I was so mad. Why? He said, I didn't want you to be uncomfortable. I cherish our relationship.
Mm.
That moment changed everything for me in life and continued to that. But I was so jaded. I didn't want to be involved in anything because I see the mentality, the words till October 7th. And you can't help it when that day when my mom woke me up is the difference of hours and start looking on things and read heinous crimes were committed that day. It was baffling. It was just, why would you do that to civilians, innocent children, women? No matter what excuse you have, but that's not acceptable at all. And I knew that it's going to be a bigger than that. I also try to reach out to my Jewish friends who I grew up here. I say grew up being in America, and they wouldn't take my phone call.
Mm.
And I could understand why after a few days. Finally, the rabbi called me and said, you need to kind of lay low for a little bit. People are shocked, and they don't see you anymore as David. They see you as a Palestinian. So I knew that what happened on October 7th was a tsunami with multiple waves that's going to spread everywhere. And that affected me emotionally and psychologically. Not only that, this is the first time the war is broadcasted through social media,
Right.
not the mainstream media. The mainstream media will take everything, all the footage, censor it, package it, and present the narrative the way they want. Fox News, CNN, whatever. But this is everything broadcasted on social media, whether verified or not verified. You put this raw, gut-wrenching images and footage, and the wording and the subjective feeling, and people not verifying, and other people are weaponizing it and everything. So you emotionally become like a crock pot boiling, and you can't do anything. You want to help, but you can't help here. Yeah, and you stuck in the middle, all the people either on one side or the other side. All that mentality really just for the first time since I was 18 till I was 51 when I went and got involved. That what really just like, I just need to do something. And I got involved.
You got involved. It's remarkable. I mean, it's quite the story. I mean, I've heard more of the details, and you're and I'm appreciative for the sake of time how you kind of condensed the timeline for us. But really, like, since moving to the United States, you the way you described it is that you've immersed yourself in community. You had friends across cultures, religions, and where you're doing your work. And it's this moment, October 7th, that kind of shook a lot of the foundations of what you thought was kind of the regular normal, and it woke you up into a situation where, like, I gotta do something, and you did. So once you had that realization, what was like what happened then next, right? Because it didn't, like, now it's called the Gaza Children's Village, but that's not the first thing that you did, right? There was a
Yeah.
step in between there.
No, so I again, the way I was brought up, and I think my dad always, didn't like words, just action person. So when I'm training as a neurosurgeon, is what you do is action, less words, more doing. And I really wanted to do something, and that opportunity came mid-December of 2023, 5 weeks into the war. That's when Algeria advanced a resolution for ceasefire, but the United States changed it to almost completely to open aid because of the blockade, and that's 2720. And the WHO called for immediately for medical teams to enter Gaza. And I just want to kind of focus on this, there was millions, if not 10 millions of people protesting, screaming, and yelling, and everything. But when it came to an action to help the people of Gaza, remember, I never volunteered ever, never. So I'm not even on the radar of any NGOs or any WHO or anything. From all that call, you know how many people answered that call?
I'm afraid to guess.
18 people.
18?
18. 4 from the United States, 2 from Canada, and 12 from England. From these millions that screaming, yelling, shouting. And when it came to action, only 18. And the reason it came to me is because there's so many layers. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, I'm not going. Oh, go to this person. Let this person know. Oh, let this. And I'm maybe the 100th iteration or maybe the 1,000, and it fell in my lap. And so I dropped everything because, again, I wanted to do something. And I went to our team. We entered Gaza. We were the first medical team to enter Gaza since the war broke. And we operated in it was horrible, horrible conditions. But not only that, I stayed true to my values in North Star. And I look, because of my career as a neurosurgeon, we always treat a patient irrespective of color, race, ethnicity, and everything. I felt like a hypocrite if I come in and only take care of Gazans and not able to take care of hostages. But I didn't know where they are. So I was embedded and stationed in European Gaza Hospital. And I used that. It's like, okay, well, between cases, I will go in the rooms, look everywhere, find them. Went to Nasser Hospital, the same thing, because I was desperate to find out and check on them. And I brought some medications at that time too. I thought they may benefit that. And then the kids are the best. In the hospital, you have about 80,000 people compounded in a hospital. There's 250 beds. And I was like, get the kids candies. Like, oh, did you hear? Did you see someone? So it was that. I came out after the war. I mean, after that week. I'm sorry, after that week.
Yeah, I just want to pause 1 second because there's something that you said that I'm familiar with, but I want to make sure our audience is two pieces. One, the resolution the United States changed that Tunisia tried became an open call for humanitarian volunteers on the ground for aid. So that was an open call, and that's where the 18 showed up. I just want to state that piece clearly. Yeah, okay, good. That's what I recalled. The second piece is this story that you're kind of like, you know, seeking out hostages or right in the hospitals. You make it sound like a trivial thing, but that's a monumental risk-taking step that you took, right? Even if you did it kind of coyly and you had the kids and the this and that, but that takes I want to say it's important. It takes significant courage. You might be like, it's my job, a hypocrite, but fine. And yet, facing what you faced, I don't think that's so trivial.
I do what I'm convinced, and I felt, as I told you, true to my heart. My family and I used our financial resources to pay people to. And then I came out, and people sought my opinion. Because here's someone who's a neurosurgeon from prestigious university, Duke University, that may have credible stories in it, which I did. I mean, I stuck to the facts, and because I stuck to the facts and didn't use any subjective words or anything, and I didn't want to be involved politically. And until today, I'm not a political. I just do things what I believe in. Now, other people think it's political, that's their perception, but no. And because of that, a lot of people were upset because I was invited to go to the UN Security Council to testify in ICC and IGC. And I was like, listen, there are lawyers, there are people involved, there are a lot of people who can talk. I just want to take care of people. That didn't resonate with a lot of people, as you know.
Right.
Then I had the privilege of talking to Senator Elizabeth Warren, and who made sure and helped quite a bit. Until today, I'm very grateful to her and the USAID. They helped me the second time to go to Gaza, April 2024. And that's when we took a lot of aid into it from Egypt there. And the same thing, I operated and also sought hostages. And that's when I got in trouble, where Hamas found out and sent 12 people to kind of seek me out, but I got out in the right time.
So are you at your liberty of saying at this point, who, if you did encounter, and like what was the information, or better not?
Yeah,
Okay, let's not go. Okay, I'm fine with that. I was scared. Like when the first time I heard this remarkable story, first of all, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was so, because we spoke. Remember, like we spoke when this was still the peak. You know what I mean? Like now we're after. So just out of curiosity, because now like after we're not after.
we have a lot of work in Gaza
Right, but
and the troops.
and I want to hear more about that in a minute. I'm just saying that was the source of curiosity was on this perception of like, what, it's done. It's not done. There's a lot of work, and we'll get to hear about what that work is. So you go in a second time, then you get in trouble, then you're extracted, and that's it. Now you can't go back.
Yeah, but I saw that time, a lot of kids, vulnerable kids, separated from their families, orphaned.
Right.
And that's where I really saw the value and my North Star changed, and my focus and my ecosystem was all about the orphans and the kids. So I came out in April, but then I was jaded by the media, because the media, each one has its own agenda and they want to present you as a. I refuse to engage with that.
Yeah.
But the only one I wanted to engage with is Haaretz, the newspaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
They reached out and they said, "Hey, we would like to kind of interview you." And I shared it with some of my friends. It's like, David, this is a red line. You cannot speak to the Israelis. And in my mind, why? Why? There? I mean, I just like, you can separate, people from governments. You have to always, you can't take a paintbrush and paint everybody the same. Yeah. And I thought it was an opportunity to tell people in Israel, but I literally was redlined. Even my wife was so scared, and she didn't speak to me for 2-3 weeks because we got a lot of, repercussions, verbal repercussions from that. But I insisted that, like, once I make my mind and I feel it, I'm convinced about it, I did. And that's when I had so I thought maybe a little article be tucked into the middle of the newspaper and check, done and everything. Well, guess what? It was like first page, both in Hebrew and then 2 days in English with the New York Times, and then, but what was most baffling, and again, it was all about facts. It was just what I saw, what I did, and not pointing fingers in any directions, just what I saw. And what's the most shocking thing is thousands of Israelis reached out by email. They're relentless. Someone got my phone number. I don't know how, and they reached out and they just wanted to help, despite the pain. That's May 2024. Despite the pain, the agony, and still half of the hostages there, they felt that they need to do something for the innocent people. Again, they didn't paint everybody as Hamas. They knew they were innocent people and they wanted help. And that when I knew that I really had a mission, and that mission is materialized into Gaza Children Village, but we did a lot of things in between, sending aid, paying salaries, getting people outside Gaza. And a friendship and partnership between myself, and I try to bring everybody in one platform. When I thought of that of Amitai, I really that even that in in May 2024, it's like, okay, if I have a way to do it, and at that time I was just working through NGOs, I really want to make an NGO that has three um, amendments or three call or three um, cornerstones of the goals. One is immediate relief to help the kids because that's my echo, really
Right.
rebuilding Gaza. And I wanted to rebuild it this time in terms of education because I believe in education. I mentioned to you the story. And the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over
Yeah, expecting
and
different
over
outcomes.
and
Yeah,
etc. So
yeah,
something need to be changed. You need to change generation. So
yeah.
that's a second amendment that I wanted to do. But equally important to me, equally important because of the relationships I told you, is I wanted to rebuild the relationship between Gazans and Israelis because
Mm,
I knew there's just naturally there are good people who want to connect. And I got invited to Tel Aviv June of 2024, and I went in and I gave a talk. And I remember it was completely sold out and everything. I finished the talk and I was gonna go travel back to the United States. There's five women came in, moms, and they said, David, when are you leaving? I said, oh, I'm leaving tonight. I'm gonna go find me a good shawarma and falafel sandwich. There's not a good one in the United States. And then I'm gonna head up to the airport. They said, no, 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 you got to stay. We're gonna have something for you. You will love it. I said, okay. So I changed my flight, paid extra $700. And the next day I was just like, you know what? I need to do something. I have a full day. And that was June 8th, 2024. I went south and I just wanted to see the pain. I've been
mm,
inside Gaza already twice, but yet I haven't seen what happened in the kibbutz and the Nova. So I made arrangement with the IDF and everything, and we went because it's closed area military. And then it was time stand still and walking through house to house and seeing the atrocities that happened and hearing stories. I just emotionally, I was drained for the first time because now I can see both sides, the pain that they had. And, it was so overwhelming. Again, I already been twice to Gaza, the images and all that suffering, and then coming here, even though it's not live, but there's everything, the ruckus, the blood, is there, but stand still. And that afternoon I was hearing a lot of activities, boom, boom, boom. It's like something is not right. And I look at the IDF and soldier, he comes to tell me, oh, the four hostages were rescued. And it was the best feeling, because I went to Tel Aviv and, and I'm like, my mind is like, excuse my language here, I'm going to use it. So, where's these damn Israeli moms? They
yeah.
told me to, they haven't called. So I'm ready to take a couple hours of nap and head to the
Yeah.
airport. And suddenly I get a phone call and said, hey, David, I'm sorry, it took us all day long, but we got the head of Abbott, the CEO. We went to his house. We got you 12 trucks of baby formula. We want to take it to
Wow.
and that's when I, in tears cried. It didn't get in for weeks because, it takes some, but that
Yeah.
just, and you kind of validated what I needed to do which is what third is rebuild back. And that's what led to the formation of Gaza Children Village,
Yeah.
with these things, immediate relief, rebuilding Gaza, and rebuilding relationships between Israelis and Gazans. Because
Yeah.
remember, Amitab, before October 7th, there's a lot of the community enveloping Gaza. They used to have a lot. They come in and pick up kids and take them to hospitals, get treated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a natural, and you cannot have a future for this region. No one is going to live. These two populations are just living there.
Nope. Yep.
They just need to find a way to reconnect them.
Yeah. That's remarkable. I mean, you described, I mean, even just, I'm just, I mean, this is obvious, but like there's like the short term, the medium term, and the long term here, right? Like first fix what we see now. We got to rebuild Gaza, and we have to rebuild trust for this to move forward. But I look, there's something that I'm really struck by this, and every time I talk to you, I get this. You are actively running towards something when most people, many people, I don't, whatever, would run away from it. Exposing yourself to, it's like, okay, you were in Gaza, you saw the trauma, and you're like, no, I have to see the more trauma, right? It's like it's the other side. I don't know, the other side. Just what happened in the kibbutzim and in the Nova, and I'm curious. Like, first of all, it's remarkable, and it's worth noting that. What I'm trying to kind of piece together as I'm thinking about all this is let's take a slightly different angle from a scientific perspective, maybe if you'll indulge us and the listeners, because you're a neurosurgeon, you're a scientist. Like, this is not rational behavior necessarily. And I'm trying to like identify how someone might or understand, less than identify, understand how somebody might justify or understand this in this moment of like this immense war, pain, human cost. Like, what does it do to us as people? And how do we choose to lean in? Or what helped you lean in? You talked about your dad and a doer. That's great. I can see that. But there's got to be, I sense there's something more there.
It's again a conviction, but it's believing, and everybody literally. I believe people do something. You have to have a moral compass, a
Mm,
north star, and that's what guides people and make them do the things they do it with belief. If you truly have a north star and a moral compass, whatever it is, and you stick with it, you will have to follow. And you're right. I was described by two very seasoned politicians, really seasoned, well known. I'm not going to mention their names.
yeah.
And then the first thing they said, "God damn it, David, you are the dummiest guy we ever met." And I take it because it's funny. It's like, why? He said, if you have one brain cell working for you, you would never engage in these activities.
Yeah, yeah,
You'll be comfortable in North Carolina, working your hours, making millions of dollars,
yeah,
not millions, I'm sorry, but good salary,
yeah,
and living comfortable. But you know what? You're doing God's work. We're going to help you.
yeah. Yeah. So tell us more about the work because it really is remarkable. Like you build this NGO. You're not from a nonprofit perspective. Like, okay, you have to build an NGO, jump through all these hoops. It's in a war zone. Now you have to also basically like if there's ever been a fine line, this is where it exists, right? In an active war zone between two sides, where you're not coming on behalf of you're like, okay, I got to work with the Israelis, okay, to get all the approvals to go in, but I have to do it in a way that won't alienate the people I want to serve because they won't trust me because of who I have to work with, and vice versa. How do I get the approvals, right, from the Israelis so they don't think that I'm sustaining some kind of nefarious network, right? There's like it's like it's not even a surgical blade. I don't know how thin it is. So it's like tell us more about that.
So we tried several times, Anton. We tried a couple of times to really implement this concept of the big village. We wanted to do a big village for 20,000, which has shelter, has a field hospital, and has the academies. And we did. We built a coalition, but for many reasons fell apart. And I'm trying to condense all that for you. But what really matters is back in June of 2025, that was the maximum blockade.
Mm,
And there were some islands of uh, population that food never got to, and everything was depleted. By then, I have literally a few Arabs and few Israelis that stayed around me that believed in me. And we said, okay, guys, well, let's just focus on the thing. Let's just feed the people. And there was nothing there. So together, we reached out to a group of Palestinians because of my contact inside Gaza in Deir Balah, and I said, hey, we want to do something for you. What can we do? They said, well, if you can buy us flour, there's nothing else left, but there's some flour in the black market. Well, how much it cost? Well, we found out it's really black market, and I think at that time we don't want to know, but we think we bought it from Hamas, but we didn't care. We wanted to feed the people because there's nothing getting in and getting out.
Yeah.
So we bought one time from $20 to $50 per kilogram of flour.
Crazy.
But that money came from, again, from both sides. A lot of Israelis, but also some of my trusted neurosurgeons, Arabs, and Muslims. And we went to them and we bought flour. We sustained 1,500 families for almost 3-4 weeks. And at one point, you know, we got that was the moment of the test. I was just because we just buying. We didn't want to reveal any identity or anything because the stakes are high. Trust is bad. So I said, you know, some of the donors, you know, the Israelis, like, hey, David, how do we know we're giving you the money is really going to people? How do you know you're not giving it to Hamas? You know, and can you like, you know, show us that the people like, you know, wear a vest and says, you know, and some Israeli NGO on it? I was like, oh my goodness, how do I do that? Like, okay, and if I tell the Gazans that this money is coming from Israelis, you're gonna think I'm, you know, I'm up to something fishy. But I didn't care. I had to be honest. The one thing I owe you, and I tell everybody, is the honesty and transparency. So I told the families in Gaza, I was like, listen, you know, this money, half of it, most of it comes from Israeli and some from Arab Israelis. And they would like to kind of for you to show a kind of gratitude to put this vest, to know that you're not giving. And they said, David, why didn't you tell us before? We would wear that vest long time ago. I said, what? What do you mean? It's like, we don't care. These people mean well, and they're helping us, and no one else is helping us. So they did wear it, and we did videos, and that was, again, the moment of validation, if you will, that there may be a hope, even if it is small, that what I'm doing, as crazy as it is, it could work. And we started working on it slowly, layer by layer, one by one, and we grew to be the one we have. We have now 5 academies. We soon finishing the largest academy in the Middle East for 15,000 kids. Wow. Together with these 5 academies and the 6th one, we're going to have about 24,000 kids. We're the second largest in Gaza after UNICEF. There's about 650,000 kids of school age at the time, and only about 150, 160 are getting education at this point, based on reports. So there's a lot of kids out there, and we're the second largest. But not only that, we, as again, being a scientist and everything, I wanted to do this differently. So from day one, when we built that first academy, July 26th of 25, again, staying true to my value and the 3 things I told you about, that I goals and mission, we wanted to do a holistic approach. We wanted to do education through a curriculum that is, you know, different, and I'll use different and explain it. We wanted to provide daily hot meals. That's for the immediate relief. We wanted to have a clinical unit with a pediatrician and nurse and to provide for these kids because they have a lot of skin disease and different things, and also psychotherapy. So as we're providing these 4 things, and no one else. This is July. This is 1 week after the blockade was lifted, and people was doing immediate relief. We were thinking out, you know, doing this holistic, and even the structure of them. No one was doing education about. Our structure is just literally, it's beautiful relatively. It's almost like the Ritz-Carlton compared to the slums inside it. Because I mean, most of the education spaces, we call space, is a makeshift, and kids sitting, 50 of them sitting on the floor, and 1 teacher, no board over. Ours is well structured, board, benches, chairs, bathroom for boys, bathroom for toilet for girls, for handicapped. I mean, just the environment is when you walk into it, and then the 5 academies each has its own theme. The kids, you know, chose a theme and they painted, kind of like you walk into a children's museum or a children's hospital. You have the Smurfs. One of the Smurfs was Toys R Us, Kung Fu, Cars, and Minions, and just love that. And we wanted to be different. We really wanted to do this immediately rebuild it. So how do you do the rebuilding? Well, again, remember my story. I grew up with one narrative. And I thought that was, my parents didn't know better. I love them.
Right.
But they didn't know that's the culture. That's the culture. I wanted to have these kids the same opportunity I had when I came to United States, which is looking at the world from different angles and have the opportunity to learn different narratives. And I can choose. I can choose whatever I want. Not is I only know one thing. So we wanted to do the education. We know it was the biggest risk that we undertaken and the biggest beehive we're gonna shake and is because for 50 years people want to change the curriculum and there's resistance and red lines but we did it. We were able to create that curriculum. We wanted to do the same thing. We don't want to change anything. We don't want to erase culture or anything. That's the other people that use ignorance and weaponize it against us. We didn't. What we took is the PA curriculum and we went through it and the insightful examples that mentioned in the New York Times, we put it from good examples from the Palestinian culture. We didn't change it, but we wanted the kids. It can. And why I say that is because my wife, who was a trauma surgeon, a cancer survivor, decided to stay home and teach her our daughter. And I said, look at her, she's Americanized. I mean, not Americanized, she's American. She's American. And I said, Lauren, would you teach that to our daughter? She goes, no. Why would I teach that to my daughter? So I use my wife and my daughter as the. Yeah, so it's like, well, if my wife doesn't, why these kids shouldn't?
Yeah.
And so we did that, but we wanted to be extra step. We even wanted to be better than the Emirates, better than the Saudis, better than Morocco. And we added this extracurricular, which is activities, because I really wanted the kids to learn about actively learn about love, tolerance, peace, negotiating. If there's something problem, we do a play because with psychotherapy, we do yoga, painting, but also play, pretending. If someone you get upset, how do you resolve that? We also wanted to give them an opportunity for the first time, to learn about other cultures. You know how many kids know about Judaism or Jews?
Zero. It's not.
Zero.
Yeah.
Christianity?
Zero.
Yeah. So how is it fair? So we try to do like 101. Here's what Buddhism believe. Here's what Hinduism believe. This is what Christianity. This is it. See, there's similar. This is believe in 10 Commandments. It's a different ways, wrapped in different ways. But there's a lot of good similarities. Yeah, but there's also differences. But so what? Differences are okay. Differences are. That's why we tell the kids, that's why you're different. Look, you have long hair, short hair. No, is that means that kid is bad?
Yeah.
And so we're doing that, and we see deliverables, but because of that, we're getting a lot of love and a lot of hate.
Yeah. Which part of it really generates the most pushback? Is it like the institutional? Is it the support or is it the content? Or like people are like, okay, fine, work with the Israelis, or work with depending on who you're speaking with, work with the Palestinian, authority, fine. But the content is the issue, or is it even just like a priori the fact that you are building these bridges?
Both, literally, like people when I say, I sit with really highly educated people, and even politicians, seasoned politicians, and I say the minute I'm using a different curriculum. The minute you say that, it's a red line. You're brainwashing our kids. How dare you? You're taking most vulnerable kids and bribe them with food and anyone is like, okay, first of all, I'm not doing that. Second of all, have you seen my curriculum?
Yeah.
Have you looked at it? Have you seen the difference before and after to make the comparison? No. Why not? Here it is. I'm putting it now. It's on my website and it's password protected, but you can call me and I'll give it to you. So look, I'm not you're highly educated. Well, take a chance and look. Why you say a red line up front? It's not about the content. It's about the dogma, Amitai. Because if you look at the content and you are fair-minded, as my wife, it's like, you shouldn't teach that in first grade, second grade, fourth grade. So it's not about the content. It is about the high moral. And you said got these people in diaspora, which is people inside Gaza really are, which is surprising enough, the people in Israel and Gaza, yes, there are extremes on both sides.
Sure.
We have to acknowledge that. But the majority is like, they want to connect. Here's the most affected group. They find a way to forgive and build bridges. They're not forgetting. It's hard to forget. But they all like want to go, they want to all go toward is trust, because they both deep in their heart believe at this point, never again for both sides. But the problem is there's people in the diaspora who are sitting in palaces, eating, drinking, and kids affording the best thing. And, they're the one who are projecting their high morals on the people. It's like, well, yeah. I was like, okay, so you want me to stop the school and not teach this? Because that's to me, it's principle. Yeah, you can stop teaching the kids. It's like, okay, are you going to come in and take over and feed them? And it's like, well, I don't have the money and everything. It's like, well, you can't win with these people.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something I keep coming back to this, and it could be just my own, it's probably my own wiring around this. But like on the one hand, I asked you earlier about, like the irrationality of running into it, right? And you said it's conviction, and it's I don't know if I don't remember, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like you may have used a word similar to like belief. So I wouldn't necessarily put it in faith, but belief in what you're doing is just in the way to go. And you're also fighting against like this idea of dogma, right? Which kind of could live also in those groups of words, right? Of conviction and belief. And especially because I'm speaking to a scientist, a neurosurgeon who maybe and try like make it accessible to me, because I'll try to follow. How do you understand this from like a wiring perspective? Because we're looking at a war zone, an active war zone. And I grew up in a very, very, very mild version of what we're living through now, right? The Gulf War and the Intifada, and I served and all, and I could, I'm fairly self-aware to talk about how I know it influences my worldview and what I have to kind of deal with, right? It's not about me. I'm talking about like a generation now in Israel and in Gaza who are dealing with, in orders of magnitude, right, issues. Like, how does the brain work in these moments, and how do we move the conversation forward in this moment?
Simple.
And not, yeah.
Let me tell you, simple.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? Another cycle? Let's just,
Yeah.
if we don't do something radical outside the box and break that, insanity, which is doing things like before, it's another 10 years and another cycle, one way or another.
Right.
I mean, since 2006, when Hamas took over, how many wars have been there? 4, 5?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and this time, as I said, because, being the first civilian, both sides, and to be involved in Gaza, and I just understood the pain. And again, it's never, for me, when I've been there, it's like, it should be never again for both sides.
Right.
It's not about numbers.
No.
It's not. I mean, yes, the casualty and the death of the Palestinian side is enormous, but it's not about numbers competing about numbers. It's about pain. There is pain on both sides. There's mistrust on both sides. Now, do you feed that and feed that peace? Because if you do, then these groups won. That's what they want. Weaponize it. You played into their cards. They want that. They want that so bad, because how do you defeat these people? Is to bring people back together, to believe both sides that we are better together. We care about each other. Because once you do that, these groups don't live. They disappear. They're gone. They work. The only way they survive and branch the power is they weaponize hate, weaponize fear. Okay, and they got half of Hamas soldiers were orphaned back in 2009 from previous war. You know that, and I know that. So unless we break the silence and can intervene quickly, immediately, and expand and scale, there's a gap. And these are vulnerable kids. They're easy. We talked about how their brain beautiful, and if someone comes in, you can brainwash them. I mean, you see that in Africa and other. They take young kids and train them and make them weapons.
Yeah.
So that's my motivation: is never again for both sides.
Yeah.
And the way it is to put yourself out there and really try hard, because I'm motivated by it's cheesy, but I believe in it, and you can call me as my other seasoned colleagues, your dummy. But Schindler's List, the last scene, when the Jewish community that he saved wrote a letter and signed it and gave it to Oscar and said, "Hey, if you get caught, maybe this will help." The guy got on his knees and cried. And he stood by and said, "I wish I sold my car. I wish I sold my golden pen. I wish I sold my ring. I could save one more life." So we want to look back 5, 10 years. There's an opportunity. Can you look back and with awe and it's like, I had the chance to save one life or to make a difference that this would never happen again. That's, if you believe in that, no matter you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, even atheist, you're just like, you know what? Yes, never again for both sides. We shouldn't allow this little maniacs, dictate how the majority of people live. I mean, for that matter, let's look at it. Yahya Sinwar, who started all this, is dead.
Yeah.
But there's hundreds of thousands of kids and people still suffering because of stupid decision, criminal decision, inhumane decision.
Yeah. So it's a very pragmatic, it's like a very, what's striking to me, it's like in the one you're describing like these extremely rooted in again something that I would, in my attempt to simplify it, right? As someone who actually comes from more of a faith, like I don't approach the world through the scientific lens necessarily, right? Like that's not my disposition necessarily, right? Like and yet I'm in conversation with you, and you're like on the one hand extremely the belief, the conviction, all that stuff, but also like extremely pragmatic, long view, like this, like a scientific, like we've been living in a laboratory of trying to achieve goal A, B, and C. That's not working. Here's the reality, right? Like the people are gonna live next to each other. No one's going anywhere. It's like extremely pragmatic and based on the agency or the belief in human agency. Like we can make a choice to break the cycle and create a reality. It will take a long time. This isn't like a parachute situation. We do this for a year or two. This is the long game. This is a long game, a very, very long game. So how do you develop the stamina for this, right? If it is a long game, and you've been doing this, and you're sitting in your scrubs, and you have a full-time job at the university, you're saving lives in North Carolina and in other places, and you're doing this thing. So what are some areas that you might lean on to develop this stamina?
Family.
Yeah,
Family, there's none. When I told you, long day, you walk in, the first thing I have when I came home, I told you already that is, I walk from the door and I have a game with my daughter, which is she hide and try to scare dad. And I play into it, and it's just, and the moment that she loves it when she feels like she's scared dad, who's knows where she hides and everything. But every time she succeeds, and the smile on her face, that's the first thing you encounter when you walk into home. That in itself is just energizing.
Yeah.
And then I look into her and I see, all the other kids, both on the Israeli side and the Palestinians. They need something like that. And then my wife, who's an amazing cook, sitting around the family or a table, eating dinner together and talking about that in itself is just like, it reminds me, it's like the only difference between my family and the people in Israel that were in the kibbutz or in Gaza is we're here in the United States, or my daughter was born in the United States, and the kids was born in that kibbutz,
Yeah.
born in, and then just like baffles you, is like why they can't have the same way as my daughter. That kind of gives me that. And then when they go to sleep and everything, and I try to close my day, I usually close my eyes and I have prayers and I as much as you think I'm scientific and pragmatic, I do believe in faith and power. And that's when I put my head for a few
Mm.
hours, 4 hours, and just really reflect really hard. And I'm the most critical of myself, the most critical of myself. And I said, and I'm not there for it for beauty contest or running for politics. Did I do the right thing? And that's my dad taught me. Did I do a good thing? And if I didn't, what did I learn from that?
Mm.
And get up there. This is that. The other thing what really drives is the smiles that I get and the pictures and the images for these kids in these academies. They can't wait for the sunrise to come in to go to the academies. And then you have to kick them hard. I mean, not kick them, but push them hard to kick them out hard and to connect because
Yeah.
they thrive for the first time. They're smiling. Their childhood rebuilt because this guy who's thousands miles away with his team. I have it. It's not one person. It's a village.
Yeah.
Teams from inside, outside, working together, hand to hand. And then what really I step back and I say, I'm learning at the end of the day that both sides are calling each other. The Gazans are calling the Israelis, and the Israelis going Gaza and talking and planning. And I'm just speaking of that. It's like, wow, who would ever thought that this would happen? I mean, it could happen, but so quick, so fast. You just marvel over these little accomplishments, and it's a small win, but it's enough for me to keep me going for the next day and recharge every day.
Yeah.
I wake up, I feel like I'm a battery when I wake up at 1, 2 in the morning, and everybody's just putting their bloods on me from everywhere, from over there, Palestine, Gaza, blah, 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 everywhere. And they're just draining me. And
Yeah.
then I come in home and it's like red, ooh,
Yeah.
1%, 2%. Yeah. So then recharge again.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty because at the end of the day, when you are on last breath and look back and your legacy, you want to know, what did I do? How did I make? It's not how many papers I accomplished or wrote. I wrote 100. It's not how many NIH grants.
Yeah.
It's about making a smile and making a difference in one kid.
Yeah.
That this kid will believe one day that the way you pay me back by paying it forward. And that's how we do it. We pay it forward. And when we start doing that concept, maybe we can dare to dream that one day my daughter, when she's a teenager, she goes to the Holy Land, and she can go bounce back and forth and say, my brothers and sisters Israelis, my brother and sisters Palestinians, and be a team and have fun.
Amen. Amen.
And
So
we should dare to dream that.
yeah. Yeah. Yes, certainly. So look, we're coming up on time and I have one I have there's two more questions. One is that I ask everybody in the end, I'll get to there, but the one question that I have that I am that worries me a little bit is um and worries me in a good way. Like I know and I know your humility in this and it's not just David. There's teams and lots of
Yep.
people involved in this and I know that like that's true. How do we create more? How do we focus on capacity building? How do we turn into training that like replicating this model in a way that can, I don't know if it can address all the orphans in Gaza, but like significantly address this massive issue in a way that we're not, it's a devastating window we are in, but it is a window. And the kids that will fall between the cracks, who knows? Who knows? So how do we scale this in a way that's meaningful?
Many ways, but first of all, take the prejudice away and be an open mind and look at Amitai as a human being, a decent human being. And when you start, that's what I tell my team. There's two principles that I really believe in, and it should guide everything. One, we don't speak with words. We speak with actions.
Mm.
By showing action and not engaging in argument or discussion, by showing a kind, remember that guy in the plane that showed that small gesture, showing me how to eat, calling me schmuck, and about taking it and not hiding his identity, not because he is ashamed of it, but he wanted to build that relationship. Action, not words. Look what I am now. That symbol action. So that's the first principle. Is we don't speak with words, speak with action. And all these religions, it's beautiful. They teach, if you really delve into take the politics out, they all should teach the right thing. It's how we interpret them and receive them is what we get in trouble.
Yeah.
The second thing is, if you really believe, I don't believe in coexistence. I really don't. And I say that again and again, because coexistence, you and I share the same space or coexist in the same space, but I still hate you. I can wait a minute to gut you out. That's a bad word. That's just a recipe for disaster for another cycle.
Right. Yeah.
What really we need to believe is we are better together. Meaning, I care about Amitai. Amitai cares about me. I want the best for Amitai because we're human beings. We're naturally, organically baked in to care about each other. We want to be connected. It's when we start talking and when we start arguing, this is where we create the fractures. And then you see these people are evil people that are very smart. They know they have no compass. They see what's the wave and they try to prey on fear. They try to prey on people's emotion and magnify it and weaponize it. So if you care about that person, and just for one step away, just like, don't look at Amitai as Jewish or rabbi or just, he's a good man. He cares about me. If you have these two principles, then it's easy to work together and solve a problem. When you work together, so the best thing we did here at Duke, but I came in and we having this encampment and everything. And I went in and talked, and there was, even among the Jewish community, there was a left, the right, they're not talking to each other, and Palestinian. And I just said, look, I'm not here to talk about, I stood in the class, big class. I said, I'm not here to talk about who's right and who's wrong. This is I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I have a problem. And I want you guys to help me. And when they all said, what is the problem? I said, well, the kids in Gaza, they have a problem. They don't have toys. Can we create a toy that the kids can play with it, but in the same time, that toy, as the kid play, can generate electricity, store it to light a bulb or charge. And amazing that problem itself immediately drove all that barriers between these groups dissolved, because suddenly they have one common theme, is to solve this problem. They're not, oh, he's Palestinian or Israeli, he's left, he's right. They had one problem, and that problem is holy, it's unique, it's scientific, it's like teams. We have 8 teams of 5 kids, working together, and I said, wow, I'm not genius. Trust me, I'm not far from it, but it worked. And so I think once you focus on the problem and stop talking and try to find a solution, it's amazing how you can bring people coalesce together. And that's what becomes layer by layer. like an onion, layer by layer, will grow, snowball, and this could be scalable. And
Mm.
those forces that try to weaponize it, they're just going to be pushed away, out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that was a perfect segue to my last question because and I'm truly appreciative and I can hear you and your story for hours and I've but the the theme here of being future oriented is incredibly important, right? You can either figure like, is it interesting to sit and debate about the cause of the problem we're facing? Yeah, that's interesting. But if you want to solve it, you got to say, okay, this is where we are. What does the future look like? Right? Where do we want to work towards? Okay, not looking backwards. So my question is, and you touched upon this in a different way, but from your perspective, this the podcast name is the long path podcast, right? There's this idea, um, I'm sure it's expressed in all kinds of cultures and religions, but there's this idea of like it's a long path, it's a long journey, it will take time, right? And I feel like we're in a moment, um, um, and we collectively and individually we have a choice. We can either what we called or tagged insanity, right? What does the world look like if we don't change course, right? What does the future hold for us there? And what does the future hold for us if we do choose differently? What's the timeline correction that could occur?
It's a generation, but because you have to change the thinking. And I hate to tell you this, my for me, that's why my ecosystem is the kids and the children. To take them, it's like seeds. You put the
Mm,
seeds, you water it, and you nurture it. It's a long way before you see the fruits of that. And the same thing with the kids. Adults may change, but they change because of cosmetic big force, and then they make it worse back. It takes a lot to change it, but I believe in this generation. That's why I focus all my energy on these kids, this generation that we need. It takes years, and you need the nurture. It's just not like, look, I'm doing this. If I quit now, people can revert back. If I quit 2 years, people can revert. This is need to be sustainable, and you have to wake up every day and make an active decision to stay on course.
mm,
It's not easy. There's so much forces. There's just so many. I can tell you the things that I'm today, like 3, 4 disasters I have to deal with. And it's easy to quit and say, look, I've done everything for generation. I can go sleep but if you quit, I keep saying if I quit, it, the cycle is back again. And that's what we need to do is when you run a marathon, it takes the first step. And it's, yeah, after a mile, it's like, oh, man, on Saturday, I can be sitting, having coffee. I'm only going to exit. No one
mm,
would
mm,
notice. And then the second mile, it's like, I've done too much. Halfway, it's like, I've done it. I can go brag on. And then you get to the last, 3, 4 miles, like, oh, I was like active. I mean, active. But once you cross that line, it's the best feeling ever. It's a marathon.
yeah,
And imagine you have kids, and I have kids. What we need to do is how are we going to leave this world for our kids?
yeah,
Did we do, were we the right parents? And not being by right parents by just providing for your own kids, because your own kids is not living in a bubble. They will interact. They're going to travel. They're going to be
yeah,
encountered with other kids. How did you equip them? That's you. If you think about it, how are you going to leave this world for your kids? And if you think about that actively every day, I think that would be your North Star. That would be your moral compass. And
yeah.
that's
Dr. David Hasan, thank you so much first for your time and joining us and indulging me and telling your story and sharing, what inspires and moves you. And more importantly, thank you for everything that you're doing to ensure with your team and with many people that are involved to change the reality and create something. And I really really appreciate everything that you've said and you do. And really my really it's humbling and it's inspiring. So thank you. Just thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Anton.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Long Path podcast. That episode was with Dr. David Hasan, a neurosurgeon from Duke University who ran towards danger and the war and operated on Gazan children, and currently heads an initiative called the Gazan Children's Village, where they're serving thousands of orphans, giving them immediate relief in food and medicine, but also shifting perspectives through education and working across borders and boundaries to bring people closer together. Really a remarkable human being. He spoke at our Z3 conference in 2025. And my main takeaway every time I talk to David is just the humanity of it all is just so remarkable in his personal story. But on top of that, what is quite interesting is that what David is teaching us and showing us is the importance of agency and taking responsibility. It's one thing to sit back and say the world needs to do this, or until this and that happens, we're going to be in this cycle of war. And David in his actions is showing us, and not just telling us, that it is up to us to make a difference. So that's my main takeaway in thinking about this episode and my conversations with Dr. David Hasan. And my question for you is, what are you going to do? Right? Not this big kind of idea, the world needs to happen, needs to evolve. What are you going to do to create the change and be part of the change so that the world that we all want to and ought to and deserve to live in will be a reality? Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Long Path podcast. We drop an episode every week. I want to thank the crew for making this happen. And please give us a follow on the various platforms. We look forward to hearing from you and engaging with you in conversation. I'm Amitai. This is the Long Path podcast. Have a great day.